Hi, we're Gemma and Annie from Green Rooms Market, and we're really pleased to be part of Planted Unplugged, which is an online trailer for their main event, which is launching next year, which is a brand new design show all about greening urban spaces with a focus on sustainability. We're really pleased to be joined today by Harriet of Harriet's Plants. Harriet, and we've got Blue here as well, let's not forget Blue. So Harriet is a horticulturalist, and she's leading the way in the houseplant industry by growing and selling houseplants sustainably. Hi Harriet, hi Blue.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you. Thanks so much
Good.
for joining us.
Not at all, it's my pleasure.
Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about Harriet's Plants and what you do?
Yes, so I and Blue, because Blue spends every single day in here. I am the grower. I am everything behind Harriet's Plants as a, she wants to go down, so sorry. Everything behind Harriet's Plants as a brand. I am a peat-free grower, never used peat, not interested in ever using peat. I am probably 80% plastic free, so all plants sold by me are in coir pots. And yeah, I have only been doing this as Harriet's Plants for about 1.5 years now. It's all going really well. And yeah, that's Harriet's Plants.
Brilliant. And could you tell us a little bit about where you actually are at the moment, about your growing space?
I am, so this is my growing space behind you. If I just move that up, you might be able to see
Lovely.
what's going on. So I am in Lichfield, which is in the centre of Staffordshire, centre of the UK really. I am out the back of a garden centre. So this garden centre, this greenhouse, sorry, used to be storage for said garden centre. And when I got it, there was stuff everywhere. None of the benches were free. So there's been a lot of clearing out, a lot of cleaning windows, that kind of thing. And yeah, so I am based in here. Started actually as Harriet's Plants down in Cornwall, where I studied at degree level down at the Eden Project, and then moved back here and took over this space. But I sell all the way around the UK, but based in the Midlands.
What a transformation. That's amazing. Time as well. Congrats.
Yes, yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about...
Oh, sorry, I've lost you.
Can you hear us now?
Oh, yeah, got you.
So if you could just tell us a little bit about what kind of led you to be here growing and selling houseplants, and in particular with that sustainable focus.
Yeah, so when I first started Harriet's Plants down in Cornwall, I've always grown. I've always propagated from quite a young age. When I moved down to Cornwall, I started buying in plants from Holland. I very, very quickly found that it wasn't sitting right with me. So buying in new plastic pots, which I understand because it's for pest control and that kind of thing, they have to buy new pots. They can't reuse the way that I do. I found that every plant that I bought in was pot bound. I didn't agree with peat grown plants at all. So I basically just said to myself, whilst doing my degree, I was like, if Holland can do it, then surely I can do it. There are no other UK commercial peat-free growers of houseplants in the UK. Yeah, and I just decided to make that switch. I am now 100% peat-free, and one day I will be 100% plastic-free. And again, I've said to you previously, I was 20% of my own was propagated and 80% was bought in. I'm now the complete opposite. So I'm 20% is bought in and they are my mother stock for the following year's propagation. And then 80% is propagated by me and grown by me.
It's brilliant, Harriet. Really, really refreshing to hear all that. Now you did, part of your degree was a research project on peat and growing within peat and non-peat. Can you tell us a little bit more about the importance for the environment of why using peat-free really is so important?
Absolutely. So when I did this research project, I obviously put a lot of time into researching peat itself and where it came from and what that meant for the environment that we live in today. So the research project was basically looking at the growth habits of plant grown in, it was Hablitzia tamnoides, which is Caucasian spinach. It was grown in peat, and then some was grown in peat-free, just to have a direct correlation of the growth. And there was no significant difference for that plant. And therefore I was like, oh, interesting. I wonder whether that would be the same if I started growing houseplants, which at that time was what I was passionate about. So I did a hell of a lot of research into it. So I've just got a few notes to the side of me in regards to just some numbers about peat. So from recently read sources, amateur gardeners use 66% of the total peat in the UK in the form of kind of multi-purpose compost, in the form of grow bags for, say, their tomatoes. 56% of the peat used in the UK is from Southern Ireland. Peat bogs in Southern Ireland are in huge decline. 6% is from Northern Europe, and 38%, if my maths is right, is from the remainder in the UK. So peatlands are one of the world's biggest carbon stores. So when the carbon is then extracted from the peat bogs, when the peat is extracted from the peat bogs, the carbon is then released into the atmosphere, and therefore contributing to global warming. The global peatlands contain, this is a really interesting fact, global peatlands contain more than twice the carbon stored in the world's forests. So that's the Amazon forest, rainforest. So that's a huge amount of carbon that is, once extracted, is just released straight away. Peat bogs, another really, it's my favourite fact. So peat bogs they grow by 1 millimetre a year. So 1 millimetre is absolutely nothing. But commercially, extractors extract at 22 centimetres a year from one bog. So from before that, to get that bog, that one individual bog, back to its original state, it would take 220 years before that peat bog was back to where it should be. That is so unsustainable. And not at all what I wanted to buy into. So I then I switched straight away. From when I started growing, I was like, I'm never growing with peat. Peatlands are home to rare wading birds. They're home to incredible plants such as the sundew carnivorous plants. They are home to a wide array of insects such as dragonflies, all of which are in decline because of the way we extract peat. That isn't just in horticulture, by the way. They use peat for all sorts of things, such as fuel. So I'm not blaming the horticultural industry here, but I'm just saying how awful it is that peat is being bought so cheaply, and peat-free compost is so hard to come by. So I think for me, it is ultimately the grower's decision to grow sustainably. So that's why I'm peat free, but it then turns over to the consumers and the buyers of said plants to demand change to predominantly a peat free society. So it's like going into a garden centre and saying, have you got any peat free compost? And if they don't, finding a different garden centre rather than just buying the easy peat compost. Because there's a huge, especially over lockdown, there's been a huge fast fashion of houseplants, hasn't there? And it's just been buying in and going out to the consumers. Sorry. So that's kind of why I'm peat free.
Really, so important for consumers to ask the garden centres to supply peat free. I'm sure the more questions they get on that,
absolutely,
they'll want to, give that demand. And there are some, I know, Alexandra nurseries in southeast London. They're doing brilliant things in terms of really trying to. All they sell is peat free compost. and I was talking to them the other day, and they've had no sort of backlash from it in terms of consumers saying, oh, it's too expensive, or oh, my plants aren't growing. So it's really encouraging, and hopefully just more and more garden centres will take that on board.
Definitely the demand, if supply and demand is there for peat-free compost, it essentially brings the price down, because more is being made all the time. I'm not going to shout out, well, I am, but my Melcourt compost is the best compost I've ever used. And I know that, I mean, specifically down south, down in Cornwall, they sell Melcourt in most garden centres. I haven't seen it much up here, but yeah, I just think when you support a great business, you know, it just, the supply and demand needs to be there to be able to bring the prices down. So yeah.
So Harriet, maybe should we talk about some of your actual plants there? So you grow some of the more unusual ones, which is really refreshing to see for a particularly UK grower. Would you like to show some of us some of the ones that you're particularly proud of?
Absolutely. Do you want to walk round very briefly, or would you, yeah, we'll walk round? Bear with me while I unplug the laptop. So, if I go as slow as I can. So this is kind of the greenhouse. These are all peat-free, plastic-free. I don't know whether you can see them.
Looks gorgeous.
I've got all the caladiums, however you want to say it, there. Some Epipremnum marble queens, plenty of Ripsalis, plenty of ficus plants, the rubber trees, very easy to care for. And then, which is an Instagram favourite, are the Rhaphidophora tetrasperma just there.
Very quick growing, those ones.
Very, very quick, easy to care for, just bright indirect light, and allow them to slightly dry out before watering. I'm sure you've got one in your collection.
Got a couple of propagated ones, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so do you want to go around the other side as well?
Yeah, go on then, have a look. Yeah.
Yes.
And maybe, Harriet, if you could show if you've got any of the coir pots there that you grow in.
Yes, I'll get those for you in a second. So you've got all the monsteras here.
Oh, and you've got a shingling one there.
Oh yes, shingles. They are absolutely. Oh, I don't know whether you can see. Absolutely phenomenal.
Amazing. Gorgeous.
You have the asparagus ferns. So they're the coir pots there. So that's a 15 centimetre coir pot. And I'd like to show you if I can, because the roots come out the bottom of them and it's really amazing. So I don't know whether you can see that there. So because it's a natural product, obviously it degrades as it goes down, which is great. It just goes in the compost if you don't want to use it anymore, but you can totally reuse it the minute you pot on. You've got some
in that pot for a considerable length of time.
Yes, oh yeah, absolutely. You've got these gorgeous pink, I don't know whether you can see the pink as well.
No.
Pink syngoniums there. Yeah, so there's plenty of things in this greenhouse.
Looks gorgeous.
And you can see them all.
Yeah.
It's a great working space.
Happily work from home there.
Pardon?
Happily work from home there.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, so then I've picked two of my favourites. Yeah. So I have, let's go with Philodendron gigas first. So obviously it's my favourite because of the velvety leaves. Yeah. Very quick grow. It's a philodendron. They're easy to care for. These are on the, and I hate this word, the rare list. I don't like the word rare because it means that people that buy in can just put up the prices of things, because actually they're not rare, because if they're rare I wouldn't have them. Yeah. So because they're native to Panama, if they were rare there would be a stop on them being imported. So the word rare is really a scary word within houseplants, because people end up spending a fortune.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so the Philodendron gigas, that's a recycled pot from the garden centre. Yeah. It's peat free. The coir poles, they are bought from they're responsibly sourced, so all the coir used in the pots and on the poles are from a UK supplier that ensures the women that work, because it's a women-led business, is the coir, where the coir pots are from, which is in Sri Lanka. They're all made sure they're paid a fair wage, they're looked after, which is something that I'm also really passionate about. And then the next...
Coir is coconut.
Coconut husk, yeah. So it's a byproduct of coconut. And I think the coir industry, now I don't know numbers on the coir industry, but they've skyrocketed in the past year. So, but because it is such a sustainable, quick growing product, yeah, it's now being used a lot more.
Right.
And then we have, so I'll show you the, no, I'll show you the main plant first. So this is a Epiphyllum anguliger. So it has white, very, very short lasting flowers that are fragrant. So they can, yeah, they can sometimes last only a day, which is quite disappointing, but they're great when they bloom. So these have been grown by me from these little cuttings here, if you can see them.
Yeah,
and I'm going to do the test of time and see if my propagation has worked right in front of your eyes. So let's, fingers crossed. Oh, so hold on.
So there.
I hope you can see this now.
Yes, we can. Yeah. That's some roots there, definitely.
Perfect. So they were a week and a half ago. So they're very fast growing, really easy to do. And if I can recommend anybody propagating them, do it, because it's just fun.
You've done a leaf cutting there where you've literally just cut the leaf and put it into the soil.
So I've gone from, and I won't cut this one because this one is for sale, but I have taken about a 5 centimetre cutting, so that's about there. I've let them callus overnight on a warm, bright and direct, never direct sun. So I've let them callus overnight, and then for the next day, and then the following day, I've then potted them in a free draining peat-free compost, and they're all growing well.
Lovely. And
so,
that's great tips there for how we as consumers can grow house plants more sustainably as well. So recycled plastic pots.
Absolutely.
Peat-free, propagation.
Propagation is key. Yeah, so like I said before, 80% of this is propagated stock now, with the hope to be 100% propagated within 2 years. I also don't use any chemical pesticides in the greenhouse, which is another way that people at home can also be more sustainable with their growing. So rather than wait for a pest to occur, don't do that. And buy things. So I buy nematodes for the greenhouse, which they're like microscopic worms. You won't see them, don't worry. And they eat anything that shouldn't be there. And then I also released quite recently, a load of ladybugs into the greenhouse just to keep things under control. And they're UK ladybirds. So yeah, they're around and about doing their thing. So that you can do that at home. That's really easy. With the nematodes, you just mix them in with your water, and you water your plants, and then you've got a more eco and sustainable pest control.
And how about neem oil?
Neem oil, so I do use neem oil, and I would like to show you some, but I don't know where it is. So I use neem oil on everything that gets sent out. So when I'm about to send, I spray, I wipe. Just neem oil stops things being able to hold on to the leaves. So it's really important to be using it on a regular basis. It doesn't harm the plant at all. And again, it's an environmentally friendly way of pest control.
And what I do, and correct me if I'm doing it wrong, but I would just put a little bit, maybe 2 ml of neem oil within my spray bottle of water, and I also put a little bit of washing up liquid, tiny bit in there.
Exactly what's in here.
My misting and spraying around all these plants, and I think since I've been doing that, it's definitely reduced the amount of mealy bugs. I guess it was the only real sort of pest that I had a little bit, and that's definitely reduced it. And that's a good way to do it, is it?
Absolutely. And just doing it on a regular basis, like you've just said, rather than doing it when you've got the pest present, it's always good to do it as a preventative. So just like whenever you water or whenever you spritz your plants, just put a bit of neem oil in. Just helps to stop things from getting out of control before they do.
Yeah, and the leaves are nice and shiny as well.
Absolutely.
That's really useful, Harriet. You've given us so much to think about, and hopefully other people can start to use these more sustainable practices within how they buy, and how they grow their own houseplants, and how they ask questions to
absolutely. And I think also a really important thing for sustainable buying, and I'm not going to throw big giants under the bus here, but buying independent, buying local, buying from garden centres that have a person behind it, buying from the little local houseplant shop that know what they're talking about, because you get expert advice as well. Even though it might be a little bit more expensive, there's a reason that it's a little bit more expensive, because you're getting a great quality product. And if you don't know where to go, let me know and I'll point you in the right direction. And if you want your local houseplant shop to be a bit more, plastic free or peat free, let me know and I'll get in contact with them, because I'm just starting wholesaling now as well, so I can then supply those people and we can get the ball rolling into plastic and peat free, really.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's really so great to hear. Thanks so much, Harriet, for sharing all this information with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's just do a quick reminder to everyone that you can buy Harriet's plants from your Harriet's Plants website.
Yeah.
And also via Etsy.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're ever changing on there as well. So I'm always putting up new stock.
And if we're right in thinking, you also sometimes do an open days to the nursery. Is that right?
So I've done one in this space, which is really great. So I had people from Sheffield. I've got people wanting to come from Oxford, which is so amazing. So I do events all the time. Oh, in fact, actually, I am down at the Chelsea Physic Garden on October the 10th for any of you Londoners. They're doing a stall holders for all people that sell and grow houseplants, perennials, herbs. So that's on Saturday the 10th of October at the Chelsea Physic Garden.
That's lovely. Thank you, Harriet. Thank you so much for all that, and we'll be speaking to you a bit more soon, with no doubt.
Please do stay in touch, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you ever so much. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.